Welcome to another episode of Sonic Discovery. I am your host, David Correa, and on this one, we'll be going over music from Justin Timberlake, Franz Ferdinand, and No Age. Hey guys, welcome to the show. I hope you've had a chance to check out other episodes that we have here on YouTube, and if you haven't, what are you waiting for? Before we go into the show, I want to give just a little background as to what we're doing here. Basically, I listen to a lot of music. There's tons of music that comes out every Friday, and it can be a little overwhelming. So I go through the stuff that I'm listening to, I let you know what I think, and then you kind of take it from there. First up, for review on this episode, we have the newest album from Justin Timberlake. Now, Justin Timberlake, huge star, one of the biggest pop stars in the world, had 3 albums actually, only with NSYNC. Huge group, but they only released 3 albums, which is a little shocking when you think about it. Then he's had, I think this is his 4th, I guess you might say 5th album, if you count that second volume, the 2020 Experience, which I don't like to, because I thought it was pretty garbage. But the other ones are great. Justified, Love, Sex, Future Sounds, great album. And then the first volume of 2020 Experience is also really good. Well, for this one, leading up to it, he was kind of talking about, what it might sound like, and it's going back to his roots. And, he's from Tennessee, so people that were assuming that it was going to have like a country influence in it. And then he's like, no, it's not really country, but you can kind of think of it as country, but with 808s. And that's kind of what we get on this album, which, I don't know. I don't think the balance here is right. Although it works sometimes, there's a lot of filler in here. So, maybe years from now, we're going to look back on this and think that, he was a game changer. If a bunch of country music suddenly starts having hip-hop beats behind it, then we can thank Justin for that. First up is the opening track and the first single, that's Filthy. And this is produced by Timbaland, who is his go-to producer on a lot of his previous albums. This, you can kind of see as like a cousin to Sexy Back. This one had to grow on me a lot. The first time I heard it, I wasn't really sure what to kind of think of it. But, the more I got used to it, the more I started to like it. It opens up with this really big part. It's almost like the climactic moment. So that's how it starts. We also come back to this part on the bridge. And then we go into more of like a synthy, funky vibe. It's very sexual in nature when it comes to its lyrics. And like I said, it grew on me. And, now it's getting more play on the radio. So when you hear it, it's like, okay, Justin, I'll give you this one. At the end of Filthy, though, it kind of loses me because it goes into this little weird outro where it has Jessica Biel, who's Justin's wife, really talking about something that doesn't really make any sense. And passages like this come out through, different times throughout the album. And you kind of think, is there a theme to this? But no, not really. At least I didn't make the connection. Next, we have Midnight Summer Jam, which was produced by the Neptunes. And they actually handled the production on most of the tracks on this album. And just like the title says, it's a nice jam. It's very funky, it's danceable. It's one of my favorites on this album. It incorporates these nice violins into the song, which are part of the hook, and I like that. And it even has time to throw in a little harmonica solo a little further on. Here he's basically showing us why the South is the shit. Higher Higher is a song that had a nice smoothness to it, and I also liked how it incorporates these guitar wails into the verse. It's part of the production. And on here he's saying that, the money and the fame is great, but those things really don't compare to his girl. Say Something is a song that features Chris Stapleton, and this is another great song from the album. Although I mentioned that there's times here where the country and the 808s don't really fit, here I feel like the beat is kind of put to the background and the guitars and more of the country vibe is able to shine. Both singers here provide us with some good vocals. The only bad thing here is the lyrics are a little vague. Montana is my favorite song on the album, and we get to that one a little further along. And this one totally gave me an MJ vibe. It has a nice funkiness to it, and also these spacey keys that you hear kind of going over the production. On this one, he's saying that, as long as he has him and his wife, nothing else really matters. Breeze Off the Pond comes right after Montana, and that one also kind of has like a spacey funkiness to it. And I like what this one says. There's going to be a lot of people, a lot of haters out there, and, just take what they say and just pretend that it's a breeze just passing right through you, and then it's gone. And I also really like the closing track, Young Man. This is kind of like an open letter that he writes to his son, which we get just a couple little vocals from him. And this, he's basically telling him how to live a good life and how to eventually be a good man. Aside from those songs that I just mentioned, which I thought were great, there's a lot of filler in here. Like going back to the top of the album, Sauce. This is produced by Timberland again, and it doesn't really make up its mind. Part of it is country, part of it is like a hard funk. The guitar is a lot more aggressive on here. Yeah, just the way it kind of goes back and forth. Some people may like it, but I thought it was just okay. Supplies was another single released from the album. This one is handled by the Neptunes, and this one had to grow on me. I thought the beat eventually was good. I like the acoustic guitars that come in, and then how it incorporates with the beat when it drops, especially when it comes into the verses. But the lyrics here are a little weird. Here he's saying that he's a dependable guy, so he's telling this girl to come with him just in case the world goes to shit all of a sudden. Morning Light features Alicia Keys, and this is a sweet song as they both kind of express their love for their other half. But here's where the production, I feel, is a little overwhelming to the song, because it's supposed to be a little sweet, but yet the production's there and it's banging along, and I just didn't think that both really fit that well. Hers is this really weird interlude in which Jessica's talking about his shirt and wearing his shirt, and how it's basically like his skin, and it's supposed to be again a little sweet because they're a couple, but it just comes off a little creepy. Then that one really segues into Flannel, which is another one handled by the Neptunes, and this is kind of the answer to that interlude we just heard. And the flannel here is supposed to kind of represent the protection that he has for them. And again, a nice idea, but the beat here is just a little overpowering. And there's also, again, one of those weird outros, which is a little longer this time. I don't really know where the theme went with that. So it's just a little lost on me. Living Off the Land is another song where I would have liked it a lot better if it didn't have that annoying beat just banging along with the song that, is a little bit more acoustic. And the same thing can be said for the Hard Stuff, because it has these nice acoustic guitars. He's talking about, not just wanting it easy in a relationship. He knows that, there's going to be a lot of problems, and he's willing to take those on. But again, my ears just kept hearing this beat there that was a little overwhelming and just didn't need to be there. There are also two songs on here that I just absolutely didn't like at all. Man of the Woods, the title track, another single released, and this one has more of a country influence, but I think it was the video. The video really killed it for me. If you guys have seen it, to me it almost looks like one of those really weird Old Spice commercials, if you guys know what I'm talking about, where like Terry Crews just suddenly like pops out of nowhere. And yeah, it kind of had like a cartoonish vibe to it, and just not really for me. And Wave is another one that I just wasn't feeling. It had more of a tropical vibe, but those you can definitely skip. To close out the album, although there were songs on here that I did enjoy, there again a lot of filler. It's 16 tracks long. I felt that maybe if he went back to what he did on the last album, the 2020 Experience, and maybe have only, I think there were 10 songs, which were much longer, and gave these very long outros, which are more like instrumental. I personally like that a little bit more, instead of adding songs that are just gonna go nowhere, or adding little interludes to a theme that is kind of hard to grasp. I ended up giving this album a score of a 6 out of 10. I know some people may think that's still a little generous, because again, I did enjoy about half of this album. Next up, we have the 5th album from Scottish band Franz Ferdinand. This is called Always Ascending. Now, Franz Ferdinand had a really big debut back, I believe in 2004, is when they released their self-titled album, which had the instantly catchy Take Me Out. I know you guys know that song. Yeah, it has like this like a dancey quality to it, where it just kind of have like your feet stomping the whole time. And the follow-up to that, You Can Have It So Much Better, was equally as good. Kind of sticking to the same formula. After that, we had Tonight, Franz Ferdinand, which incorporated more electronic elements, and I thought that was still pretty good. And then the album after that, actually, I forget what it's called, but no need to even talk about it. I didn't listen to it. The reason why I'm checking this one out, though, is because I did listen to the opening track, which is the first single, Always Ascending, and I did enjoy it. And, incorporating some different sounds here, more of a synthy vibe. And that may have something to do with the fact that one of their founding members had just recently left the band. Now, comprising the band, I'm going to have to read a little bit for this one. Alex Krapanos, he's the lead singer and the guitarist. Bob Hardy is the bassist. Nick McCready is the guy that left, and he did rhythm guitar, keyboards, and sang background vocals. And he was eventually released by Dino Barnett and Julian Corey. And then we also have Paul Thomas, who's on drums. So now they went from, maybe being 3 guys to 5 guys. So I think, this really meant that they could start over or take their sound in a new direction, which is what they're doing on this album. The opening track and lead single, Always Ascending, I already said I was a fan of this. It has a nice little build up to the song. It really starts going, and it's more of like a synthy dance rock song. And this one talks about always, ascending, always continuing and having a constant progression. And at the end of the song, it brings us full circle back to the beginning, and with the same lyrics and vocals, but now still keeping that dancey beat. And it's a great way to kick off this album. Lazy Boy has a funky bass and an eerie synth line that opens the track before the guitars come in and give us more of like a disco vibe on this track. This one here is literally talking about a lazy boy that's not going to get up and do anything. And I think this is almost like a reflection on what they think of this generation. Paper Cages slows things down a bit, but still incorporates kind of like a funky strut. And on this one, he's talking about breaking out of our cages that we kind of put around ourselves, really preventing us from moving forward. And, sometimes that's not really hard to do. Finally is one where the verses are a little bit more chill and relaxed, and the choruses here have a lot more energy, and they constantly do a shift back and forth. This is one of the tracks that reminded me more of their older sound. Huck and Jim is kind of an odd song here. It has different parts. There's a moment here where it sounds like he's rapping, and then others where we get more of a crunch from the guitar. This song really grew on me, and I just like the fact that the band experimented a bit. Feel the Love Go is also a dancey track. This one has some added sax towards the end, and also a pretty cool long instrumental outro. Slow, Don't Kill Me Slow, is the closing track on this album. I really like the chorus on here, and the whole second half is just this instrumental part where these it's very soft moment. It has these synth swells that occasionally happen, but it just kind of like eventually fades away. Here he equates his former lover to being an executioner and pleading that she not let him die slowly. Glimpse of Love was a song that was another dancey track that had more of a disco vibe here, but it really didn't connect with me. Here he's talking about people's obsession with physical beauty and, just kind of dating in general. And the Academy Award, which was an acoustic-based track, which, had some shifts here that I thought were okay. And this one talks about our obsession with having to capture every moment and needing the gratification, people liking this and liking that. Both of those tracks, just kind of seems like, they're a little older, so they're kind of disconnected with the youth of today and how they live and communicate. To close it out, I was really surprised by this album. It was a nice, different change for the band. Still, incorporating the dancey tracks that they've always had. This album's going to get a score of a 7.5 out of 10 for me. So if it's been a while since you've caught up with Franz Ferdinand, this would be a good album to reintroduce you. And the last album up for review is the newest from No Age. This is called Snares Like a Haircut. Now, most of the time, I kind of know the artist that I'm talking about a bit, but No Age is really a band that I think I've maybe heard one or two tracks from them in the past. I know that they've released 3 other albums on Sub Pop, and they've released countless EPs, but this is really my first introduction to them fully. So if you guys don't know them, I don't know them either, so we're discovering them together. The band is a duo, and it's made up of Randy Randall, that plays guitar, and Dean Allen Spunt, who is the vocalist and drummer. For not knowing anything about this band, I was really pleased with what I heard. Cruise Control is a great opener and has a lot of punk energy, and here he hints at having dissatisfaction with life. Stuck in the Changer has more of like an indie rock sound, and this one also talks about really not feeling comfortable in your surroundings. Drippy is a song dripping with energy, and here they talk about, understanding every sensation that they're feeling is unique to yourself. Send Me is a softer track on here. It's more of a mid-tempo, it quiets it down a bit, and on here he's talking about where life is going to lead him next. On the bridge, there's a slight little shoegaze detour that they take that I especially liked. The title track, Snares Like a Haircut, is an instrumental track, and this one, it's odd. It's two things. You hear more of like a typewriting sound layered over these more of like ethereal track. So it was an interesting way to kind of close out the first half of the album. The second half of the album is where we get a return of a lot of energy. The first song, Title, has the verses that are a little bit more reserved, but then the chorus is just bursting with urgency. Soft Color Fad is just an overall great song, and Popper is one that has a punk energy, but a genuinely catchy hook as well. Third Grade Rave is another instrumental track, and this one has some interesting sounds that are kind of hovering over this pushing beat, and there's also like a horn that's kind of blaring around in there. And the closing track, Primitive Plus, is one that is spacey and hazy. It almost sounds like they took a part of Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles and just kind of stuck it in like an infinite loop and just kind of played that over and over again. It was a really interesting way to close things out. Overall, I was really impressed by what I heard from No Age. This is going to get a score of an 8 out of 10 from me. So it really makes me interested in going back and checking out some of their previous albums. Well, there you go. 3 new albums for you guys to potentially check out. If you have any suggestions for things you want me to listen to, go ahead and leave a comment at the bottom. And while you're there, if you did like what you've been hearing, then go ahead and hit like, or you could always subscribe and know when the next one comes out. On the next episode, we'll be talking about the soundtrack to Black Panther, MGMT, and Hookworm.